Hey everybody, Michael Pegon here. When Christians Attack, Part 3. I'm going to have a little bit of fun in this video and just make it short and abbreviated with a couple things to explain. As you'll see in my left hand, from Christians Attack Part 1 and Christians Attack Part 2, the language of the Bible is very theocentric. It's very beautiful. The word give, the word will, affliction, conscience, select or elect, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or Father, Son, breath, marriage. This P word, this four-letter word, is a Greek word that means perverse or perversion. The New Testament has a lot to say about perversion. It's a Greek New Testament word. Shepherd, Jesus is the good shepherd. Obligation, female, male, assembly, good, and knowledge. This is the language and the worldview of the New Testament. Now, over here in my right hand, I have a new development. Now, between the two columns, guess which of the two columns is biblical? Of these two columns, one column beginning with the word breath, another column beginning with the word spirit. One of these is a biblical New Testament language worldview. If you think that you have an angle on the Holy Spirit, if you believe that your church has an angle on the Holy Spirit, some churches split over the gifts of the Holy Spirit, the movement of the Holy Spirit. Do you know the Greek word for spirit? If you know agape, do you know the word pneuma? Pneuma. Pneuma is a Greek word. It means breath. Isn't that amazing? Did you know that? Now, just for fun, why don't you look at the first 4 chapters of the book of Acts? Acts is famous for the move of the Holy Spirit, except for one thing. On all of those occasions, the word pneuma, which means breath, it occurs when someone is speaking or preaching or saying something. Now, before I move on with this list, I want to show you something super quick. What I discovered last year in 2022 is that not only is the language, the grammar of the New Testament 3rd and 4th grade, but the content of the New Testament is 3rd and 4th grade. Let me show you what I mean real quick. Does God identify as light? God is light, and in him there is no darkness. Does God self-identify as light? Yes, he does. God is agape. God is love. Does God self-identify as love? Very simple concept, such as light. Yes, he does. And whether we're in the Old Testament with the Hebrew word ruach, which means breath, the breath of God was hovering over the waters, and God said, "Let there be light." From his breath, he spoke, "Let there be light." God self-identifies as breath. It's a very simple concept to understand. So if you want to understand the move of the Holy Spirit, understand that the word spirit is a Latinism. Spiritus means breath. If you insist on saying spirit, which is fine, just know that it's a 3rd and 4th grade concept, meaning breath. So a move of the Holy Spirit is a move of the breath, which is why Christians speak from their breath in love, in truth, and in knowledge. Look at this word just. Justice. justification, justification by faith. If you take a Philosophy 101 class, you'll be introduced to the concept of justice, because the Greeks were preoccupied with justice. This is why the Greeks were the forerunners, the beginning of Western civilization, which ended up hinging on the person of Jesus Christ. You see, there is no such word as righteous. The word dike means just, justice, justifiable, justification. It's a very simple concept. The reason you don't know what righteousness is because there's no such word. You do know what just, justifiable, justice, justification means. The word dike means just, justice. Without belief, it is impossible to please God. There is no word faith. Very interesting. The root of the word faith is once again Latin, fides. You're going to notice a theme. When Latin sneaks into our English Bibles, there's going to be mysteries hidden. There's going to be confusion. Okay? Are you starting to understand that? Spiritus is Latin for breath. God self-identifies as breath. Fides is Latin. The word is belief. Without belief, it is impossible to please God. Just as justice, justification, justifiable has all of those different versions of the word, the same is true for belief, beliefs, believer, believers, believe, believing. Those occur in the New Testament. Belief is a very simple concept. Do you believe in Santa Claus? Look at the next one, biblical. Now, biblios is a Greek word. Biblios. This is a biblical teaching on the New Testament because I'm using biblical words. These are 3rd and 4th grade grammar with 3rd and 4th grade concepts. To understand the Bible is to understand a book. Look at this word orthodox. Do you believe that you are orthodox because you believe in the righteousness that comes from God, a faith that comes by hearing and being filled with the Holy Spirit? You are outside of the realm of biblical, revealed New Testament Christianity. But if you understand breath, justice, and belief, now you're in the 3rd and 4th grade grammar, worldview, and content of the New Testament. It's very simple. If you were to take an introductory Greek class, the first verb that you learn is loose. Loose. That Greek word loose, such as when Peter's chains were loosened, is popularly translated free. Jesus said, you're free from sin. Paul said, you've died to sin and ceased from sin. John says, we do not sin and cannot sin. We're free from sin, meaning that we're loosed from sin. This means we're loosed from a condemned conscience. It doesn't mean we're perfect. It means we're loosed, free from a condemned conscience. For whom the Son frees is free indeed. Now, isn't that interesting? That loosened is a very simple idea. Peter's chains were loosened, and our consciences are loosened from condemnation. Did you know that ethnic is a Greek New Testament word? Remember when Peter went to preach to the Gentiles? He didn't preach to the Gentiles. There is no such word. He went to preach to the ethnics. So, if you believe in races, just know that the worldview of the New Testament, when it talks about the world, for God so loved the world, he's not talking about the planet. He's talking about the ethnicities. Because the Jews saw everybody outside of Judaism as ethnics. They themselves thought themselves as ethnocentric, meaning that their ethnicity was the central ethnicity of the human race. Can you see how resistant the early Jews were to the ethnics? Now, I have one more thing to show you here to help you make sense out of all of this. You might wonder how it is that I've broken the code of New Testament Christianity to reveal to you the actual words. This chart over here, art, science, religion, philosophy. These are the 4 contributions of the human race. There's not a 5th one. Think of any human contribution to this world. And it is in these 4 categories: art, science, religion, philosophy. Do you like aesthetics, beauty, creativity of the arts? Arts and creativity and aesthetics is a contribution to humanity by humans. The word around science is measure. If someone's not measuring, then they're not doing science. Do you understand how important measuring is and how difficult measuring is? Science revolves around measurements. And not only do there have to be perfected instruments of measurements, but then there has to be a reliable means to record those measurements. And then with the recorded measurements, there has to be a way to save and then to understand those measurements. Science is a discipline that revolves around measuring. Arts is a discipline that has to do with aesthetics. Do you see religion? Religion is revelation. To define religion in a single word would be revelation. Indeed, that's the point. Revelation is that knowledge that comes to someone. According to their conscience, they know something, which is to say they have a belief. Do you see the nuance between belief and knowledge? Religion has to do with revelation. It's very subjective. There's nothing more subjective than revelation. Finally, philosophy. Philosophy, in a word, has to do with words. As a discipline, it's called rhetoric. Philosophy has to do with words. Now, this year, I was awarded my 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th college degrees. I was awarded a degree in philosophy. I have my dual master's in religion. I have an associate's degree in general science, as well as math and science. And I've spent very much time in the arts. This is just to tell you that the language and the worldview of the New Testament is very simple. The complexity of Christianity comes from people trading out the biblical worldview for the gymnastics of humanism. Humanism is very liberal, meaning that it's very conjectural, and there's a lot of guesswork. It's very much the broad path. Humanism is not a biblical worldview. The biblical worldview is God-centered. And the language and the content of the New Testament is very simple.